English translation 442nd contact. Saturday, 10th of February 2007, 16:09 hours.
Hello, Ptah, my greeting to your arrival. And right away I would like to say that which you had overheard after our correction work is a misunderstanding for which I should apologize to you. The matter was not as it was misunderstood and said, because it was completely in accordance with your wish.
Really?
Undoubtedly, you got agitated for nothing.
Then I am reassured and glad.
That goes for me too. Some time ago, Professor James Deardorff from the USA wanted to know a few things about the cake ship that landed on our parking lot between the shed and the residential building. The story concerning the striking similarity of the hull of the cake ship with a barrel cover form or with a barrel lid and its origin from storage barrels in our possession is mentioned in the 254th contact report. Christian Frainer, therefore, had to take several photos and indicate the size of the ship and the distance between me with the camera and the cake ship. For my part, I know that the diameter is about 3.50 meters, which is what I told Christian. But can you tell me the exact size, but also how many people can fit in this small ship?
That is no secret, and I know the exact data. The lowest outermost diameter with the flat rim was 3 meters and 52 centimeters, but the outermost upper outer rim diameter was 3 meters and 20 centimeters. The entire outer rim structure on which the oscillation accumulators were mounted was 37.6 centimeters, while the dimension from the lower rim ring to the plane of the swinging wave accumulators was 32 centimeters, as with these. And the space in the flying apparatus was designed for one person in a seated position, although 3 people could be accommodated in a crowded manner if necessary. However, this type of flying apparatus was not suitable for the earthly atmosphere, which is why they were removed from earthly space after only a short period of use.
I was not aware of this. The silver balls probably mean the swinging wave accumulators, I suppose, right?
That is true. Their diameter was 32 centimeters, as I said.
Thank you for the data that Christian might need. But I have another question from a man who wants to know if a ligation of spermatic ducts can have harmful consequences for men or not. Since I have no knowledge about this, I would like to ask you whether disadvantages arise or not.
A ligation of the spermatic ducts of a man is not harmless, because it can have serious consequences, which are that speech problems arise in the form of aphasia, which means a speech disorder and a slow loss of speech, in the worst case until the speech is completely stopped or silenced. The cause is a brain disease, which is caused by the disorder and through which sperm usually also enters the bloodstream in a harmful wise. In certain cases, other damage can also occur, for example, also causing Parkinson's syndrome.
Oh, that is unpleasant. I do not think our doctors know anything about this. That also applies to my side. But tell me what you have to say about this. Today I heard in the news that the Russian president, Putin, at the Munich Security Conference, has energetically spoken his mind regarding the politics of the USA. Putin said that the USA is striving for world rule, respectively, world power, and thereby also promotes the resuming of the arms race, interferes in the trade of foreign countries, and practices warlike actions.
That is actually something extraordinary that I saw just 2 days ago through a look into the future. Therefore, your and our explanatory efforts in regard to the USA's real machinations and plans for world rule bear the first fruit, which Russia's President Putin has now brought to ripeness, in that he named the actual and reprehensible facts which rage in U.S. politics. But that does not come from an estimation, because the facts named by you and by us in your bulletins cannot be overlooked. Consequently, they are also studied in Russia, whereby finally President Putin's public speech resulted. This will certainly not remain unanswered because already mendacious denials are being spread from the USA that Putin's utterances did not correspond to the truth. However, the fact is that the USA, with the foreign policies it operates and with the criminal military war actions and Secret Service actions, makes the world situation ever more unsafe and forces other countries to arm themselves. With normal politics and military politics, the USA therefore carries out assistance towards worldwide insecurity and terrorism. As they, however, through their criminal and felonious foreign policies, also stir up angst in other countries about a military invasion of U.S. armed forces, whereby these countries are forced to develop atomic weapons programs in order to manufacture weapons which correspond to this.
Every rational human in the world knows that Putin is, however, correct in his speech. It is only to hope that he continues to take the same line, and thereby the entire world will be shaken up in order to stop the USA's criminal machinations and plans to rule the world. If that does not happen, then the danger of a worldwide war remains constant, and indeed so long until the USA pulls out of the entire world, back to its own country, and leaves the world in peace, as well as allowing the individual countries to solve their own religious and political problems. When one thinks that, since as long as anyone can remember, never has collectively so much harm, death, murder, torture, destruction and disaster happened on the earth as it has come about through the fault of the USA, and will further come about, as it has resulted, and results since the USA interferes in the interests of other countries, and started and starts wars, as well as revolts and revolutions, as well as murder and other crimes through the U.S. Secret Services and U.S. military, then, regarding U.S. of America, the devil incarnate can be spoken of.
I also see it so because it corresponds to the truth. But now to some predictions. On the 12th of February, next Monday, the Iberian Peninsula will be shaken from the Atlantic Ocean by a seaquake of magnitude 6.4, the vibrations of which will be felt as far as North Africa. Then it must be said that negotiations with North Korea will lead to a halt to the development of nuclear weapons, which began months ago, but there will still be a degree of uncertainty as to how the agreement will be effected. Nothing more can be reported, because the current period remains remarkably calm and is spared extraordinary events that could be predicted to be significant.
Perhaps the calm before the storm.
That is easily possible.
Lately we have been talking about autism and wondering if it is genetic damage. Are you allowed to say something about this?
Autism is actually a genetic damage which causes a wrong neutron circuit in the brain. But I am not allowed to explain more about this because it would be against our directives and would reveal facts that have to be worked out by the earthly physicians and scientists themselves.
Thanks, that is enough. What do you think about this? For quite some time I have been selecting special programs on television, which I record on video and which are then played back to the core group members by Hans-Georg in the hall. I do this because the topics I copy from television are instructive.
Florena, Enjana, and I have already observed this a few times, and we think your idea is very good because the themes you copy and have presented are very instructive. Every instructive knowledge not only promotes general education and a far-sightedness in many things and facts of the most diverse fields of knowledge, but it also belongs to the spiritual teaching, aka creation energy teaching, which is all-encompassing in relation to every field of knowledge.
You are anticipating what I was going to say. Spiritual teaching does not only mean to cultivate the teaching of the Spirit with regard to the creational laws and the creational recommendations, but also to advance in knowledge of all kinds and thus to create an expansion of consciousness with regard to the perception, recognition, cognition, cognizance, practical experience, and the lived experience of it, as well as the creation of the resulting essence, the wisdom. For this, however, Rationality and intellect are necessary, which is why, together with the whole, intelligence is also promoted, which, contrary to the stupid assertions of inexperienced psychologists, is expandable and progressive, through which the human being can learn, become smarter, and more knowledgeable.
The regrettably wrong and erroneous attitude, the misunderstanding of the actual facts of human intelligence by the inexperience of earthly psychologists who bring false assertions and invent false doctrines, are well known to me.
We have spoken of this before. But tell me, dear friend, can you give me information regarding...
Of course, but this must remain between us.
That is clear. Go ahead.